My name is Ava Morgan, 28, an ER nurse in Savannah, Georgia. I'm the eldest daughter, the one who fixes things. My flaw: too responsible. I carry everyone's weight until I forget my own. In 3 months, I'm marrying the man I prayed for. In 3 days, my sister will make sure I don't. The morning of my final fitting, my gown was gone. My sister wore it online first. By sunset, she'd booked my venue. The next day, a judge arrived. If you're watching, please like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Has family ever betrayed you so calmly that it felt rehearsed? Tell me where you're watching from, and whether you'd forgive or fight back. I'll show you how I chose. The dress lived in a carbon black garment bag that rustled like a secret. I kept it at Magnolia and Lace, the boutique off Whitaker Street where Spanish moss drapes like stage curtains and tourists take slow pictures. My final fitting was Saturday at 9. By Friday night, after a 12-hour trauma shift, I fell asleep with my sneakers still on and my badge digging into my collarbone. Responsibility can be heavy enough to bruise. You don't notice until you stop moving. My sister, Sloane, noticed everything. She always has. 2 years younger, mascara sharp, a social media manager who can make a latte foam look like a solar eclipse. You work. I present, she'd joke, snapping a photo of my scrubs and calling it gritty aesthetic. She lives 20 minutes away in a curated apartment that smells like peony candles and costs more than my car. We love each other, but we have different definitions of enough. Saturday dawned wet and white, fog curling off the river like breath. I parked around the corner from Magnolia and Lace and saw the owner, June, flipping the sign to open. She looked at me. "You're here early, Ava." "Thank God." My stomach tightened. "Why?" June swallowed. "We had a situation. Is my dress—" Her eyes flashed, guilty. "It was picked up." I felt the room tilt. "Picked up by who?" June's fingers trembled over the iPad. "Your sister. She said you sent her. She signed Ava M. and showed a DM from your account. I should have called, but it looked like me," I whispered. "She knows how to imitate me." June pulled the log. There it was, 9:06 a.m. Pickup confirmed. My heart hammered so loud I could hear it in my ears. "June, did she—" "Try it on." June nodded. She said she needed to check hemline for content. I should have run then. But I stood very still and watched a memory slide into place. Sloane at 15, wearing my homecoming dress without asking, posting mirror pics while I hunted in closets that suddenly felt foreign. "We share," she'd said back then. "You're the older sister. It looks better on me." I forgave her because older sisters are trained to forgive. We teach the world how to treat us. My phone vibrated like it was trying to escape my hand. A notification surfaced on Sloane's story. "Say yes." To this dress, a boomerang clip, my gown, my silk organza cathedral train, sweeping across her apartment floor. She twirled. The illusion sleeves shimmered. She'd paired it with my grandmother's pearl comb, the one Mom kept in a velvet box for me. My throat tightened so hard my voice came out as dust. I typed, "Take it off. Bring it back now." The typing bubble appeared, then vanished. Another story posted. This time the caption read, "Big news tomorrow. Venue secured." She pinned the location. Forsyth Park Conservancy. My venue, reserved 6 months ago. Deposit paid from my overtime. I called. Straight to voicemail. I called Mom. She answered on the first ring. "Sweetheart. Mom, where's Sloane?" "She just left." "She looked beautiful, Ava. Maybe she's—" "No. She's wearing my dress." Silence clenched the line. Then, "Don't be dramatic. She stole my gown." "That's not drama." Mom exhaled. "She said you gave permission. You know how hard things have been for her since nothing," I snapped. "I'm getting married in 3 months. Maybe you could share?" I laughed. One dry sound that felt like a crack. "Like high school? Like always?" "Ava," she said, "don't start." I hung up. Because if you've ever had to explain theft to someone who benefits from your calm, you know. Explanations only teach them how to ignore you better. June put a hand on my shoulder. We'll fix it. I shook my head. Sloane knows the fittings, the beading, the bustle. She knows the timeline. She wants the day, not the dress. June blinked. What do you mean? I swallowed. She's planning something tomorrow. By noon, the group texts detonated. Cousin Chat. OMG, Sloane engaged? Aunt Chat. Bridal brunch today? Church ladies chat. Pastor says no last-minute weddings in the sanctuary without premarital counseling. A photo leaked into one thread. Sloane in my gown, hands on her hips, chin lifted. The caption under it, posted by Sloane's best friend Jade, made my stomach ice over. When you know, you know. Tomorrow at Forsyth. Surprise. Tomorrow at Forsyth. My venue. My date was in June. Hers was Sunday, tomorrow. She wasn't wearing my life. She was pacing it, accelerating it, stealing the finish line because she didn't want to run. I called Evan, my fiancé, my steady harbor with inadequate cell reception inside the trauma bay. He answered on the fourth ring. Aves? I can't talk long. My gown is gone, I said. What? Sloane took it. And the venue for tomorrow. Silence. Then his training voice, the one he uses when blood is everywhere. Okay, you're safe? Yes. Good. I'll be off at 5. We'll handle it tonight. Evan, I love you, he said. Don't let anyone rewrite our timeline. The line clicked dead. He didn't say we'll stop her. He said we'd handle it. Love that can triage. Keep it. I drove home. Every traffic light took a year. When I opened my apartment door, Mom was on my couch, hands folded, eyes bright with the wrong kind of excitement. She'd let herself in with the spare key I hadn't hidden well enough. Ava, she said, don't be mad. Sloane's had a rough year. If she wants to do a small ceremony tomorrow, it doesn't erase yours. It uses my everything, I said. My deposit, my dress, my comb. Mom looked away. The comb was Nana's for both of you. It was promised to me, I said. Promises change. I laughed, but there was nothing funny in it. You mean the rules change for me? Mom stood. Please don't ruin this for her. The sentence landed like a slap. I stared at the door because if I looked at her, I'd say something I couldn't unsay. Get out, Mom. Her face pinched. I raised you better. I opened the door. Then act like it. She left without slamming the frame. That metallic click sounded like a verdict. I sat on the floor and counted backwards from 100 like I do between compressions in code blue. When I reached 0, a plan stood where panic had been. First, I texted June. Lock the boutique. No new releases. I'll reimburse any penalty. Second, I emailed the Forsyth Conservancy with my contract, deposit stub, and a simple line. Unauthorized event planned for Sunday under my reservation. Please confirm protocols. Third, I called my Aunt Rebecca, not a blood aunt, but the one who taught me to hold my chin level and my temper lower. She answered on the second ring. Then came the invitation, not from family but from the city. Chief Daniels asked if I'd speak at a professional ethics conference about creative accountability in the digital age. I almost said no. Then I thought about all the people like me, too polite, too trusting, too afraid of being called difficult. The ones who let others redraw their boundaries until they disappeared. So I said yes. When I stood on that stage months later, under soft lighting instead of spotlights, I told the truth plainly. Revenge gets a bad reputation, I said. But sometimes it's just another word for correction. The difference is whether you build something after. They applauded, but I wasn't performing. I was remembering. That night I drove to Forsyth Park, the same place it all started. The grass had grown back where her wedding arches once stood. The fountain still whispered under the same moss-draped trees. I brought no flowers, no camera. Just stood there until the memory finally stopped stinging. Then I noticed a small envelope tucked into the gate, my name in careful cursive. Inside was a photo. It was me, years ago, in our grandmother's backyard, wearing that paper napkin veil. On the back, Sloane had written, You looked happier then. Maybe we can both again someday. I didn't cry. I just smiled, small and sad. Maybe we both could. But not today. By the end of spring, things felt quieter. And quieter, I learned, was sacred. Maya moved to Atlanta chasing bigger stories. Evan and I finally set a new date, a smaller one, private. No venues, no gowns and magazines. Just us, under the river bridge, with Judge Stokes officiating and Aunt Rebecca holding the rings. When I finally wore the gown again, it didn't feel like an artifact. It felt like reclamation. The silk still carried memory, but it also carried proof. I could be stolen from and still be whole. After the ceremony, Evan whispered, "Worth the wait?" I laughed. Every bruise had its purpose. Later that night, I opened my laptop for the first time in months and typed into a blank document. Cheap work, clean hands, a sister's story. Not for publication. For permanence. Because revenge isn't about destroying what hurt you. It's about ensuring the truth survives you. Tomorrow, Maya's documentary crew would arrive, wanting one last interview for a national piece. They'd ask me the question I still wasn't sure how to answer. Did you ever love your sister? And maybe, just maybe, the truth was yes. I just stopped letting that love come without boundaries. When Maya's crew arrived, the air smelled like rain and new beginnings. They set up their cameras in my studio, soft lighting, clean background, the same corkboard that once held sketches, contracts, and chaos. Now it held only one thing, a photo from my new wedding tucked beside the folded letter Sloan had sent. The producer asked the question gently, like she already knew it would hurt. "Ava, after everything, do you still love your sister?" I didn't answer right away. Love had become a complicated word, like an echo of something that used to fit but doesn't anymore. I thought about the nights we stayed up under Nana's quilt, whispering dreams into the dark. About the mornings she'd steal my brush, my perfume, my patience. About how she took my gown and my peace, but in the process, she taught me where my boundaries ended and my worth began. Finally, I said, "Yes, but I love her from a safe distance." They didn't expect that answer. Neither did I. When the cameras stopped rolling, I looked at the lens one last time and spoke. Not for the documentary, but for the women who'd find pieces of themselves in this story. My name is Ava Morgan, 30, a nurse from Savannah, Georgia. I used to think being responsible meant saving everyone around me. Now I know. Sometimes the most responsible thing you can do is let people face what they've built. If someone steals your peace, your work, your story, it's not your job to fix them. It's your job to reclaim yourself. Revenge, in the end, wasn't about rage. It was about reclamation. About taking back the narrative and saying, "This is mine. You don't get to define it anymore." After the crew left, I poured a cup of coffee and opened the window. The city hummed like it was exhaling. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for anyone's apology. I had built my own closure, documented, verified, and emotionally notarized. Outside, the river reflected streaks of silver and blue. I thought of Sloan somewhere far away, maybe trying to rebuild under a new name. I hoped she'd find peace too. Not because she deserved it, but because I finally did. I whispered to the empty room. We both learned what it costs to steal from family. I just learned sooner what it costs to stay silent, and that, finally, felt like freedom. If this story reached you, please like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you loved and found the strength to rebuild anyway? Would you forgive, or would you walk away forever? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And remember, silence isn't grace when someone's taking from you. Speak up, write it down. Let the truth fly higher than any gown ever could. That night, Evan cooked dinner, something simple, grounding. He asked if I wanted to celebrate. "Not yet," I said. "Then when?" "When I can say her name without tasting iron." He nodded, understanding without words. Before bed, I opened the sealed box again. The gown looked peaceful, folded, untouched. I ran my fingers along the beadwork. tiny stitches of patience that survived the worst of us. Then my phone buzzed. An email, subject, cease, unauthorized publication of private messages. Sender, Sloan Morgan's legal counsel. My breath caught. Of course, she wasn't done. She was regrouping. I smiled, slow and steady. Because what she didn't know was that every private message in Maya's story had been cleared and timestamped under fair use documentation. Sloan was still trying to fight perception with performance. And I had the one weapon she never developed: discipline. I closed my laptop. Let her file whatever she wanted. I'd built my case like I built my life, quietly, thoroughly, unbreakably. Sloan's empire was collapsing, but she was desperate enough to turn legal. The cease and desist wasn't a threat, it was an invitation. And I was about to RSVP in the most public way possible. The letter sat on my desk for 3 days before I opened it. Heavy cream stock, gold-embossed letterhead, too elegant for what it contained. Inside, legal theater, half threat, half bluff. Our client, Ms. Sloan Morgan, demands immediate removal of all defamatory materials published by you and associated parties. Failure to comply within 72 hours will result in litigation. Litigation. The word tried to scare me. It only confirmed what I already knew. She'd run out of sympathy to weaponize, and now she was reaching for paper she didn't understand. I didn't delete it. I printed it. Then I highlighted every inaccuracy in red, drafted a response, and carbon copied 2 people, Maya Rios and Judge Evelyn Stokes. The subject line read, "Response to baseless claim, factual evidence enclosed." Attachments, screenshots, chain of custody logs, public records, and a polite note. All materials were vetted, verified and published with consent from sources. Please advise your client that per Georgia Statute 5157, truth is an absolute defense to defamation. I hit send and felt the first real breath of freedom fill my chest. By Thursday, the counterpunch began. Maya called me early. "You've got to see this," she said. Sloan had gone live again, slicker this time. Professionally lit, white background, a publicist clearly feeding lines off camera. "I'm seeking justice," she said. "Everyone deserves a chance to rebuild. My sister turned a misunderstanding into a witch hunt. The comments section sis live in real time. She's lying again." She looks sincere. "2 sides to every story," Maya muttered. "You ready to end this?" "Not with words," I said. "With receipts." That night we uploaded the audit. Not to social media, not to gossip channels, but to riversidepublicrecords.gov, a government archive for public documentation. Title: Summary of Verified Contractual Fraud and Digital Misrepresentation, Morgan v. Morgan. Inside, 186 pages of exhibits, filings, notarized statements, time-stamped correspondence, IP trace logs, and financial audits signed by certified experts. Everything legal, everything irrefutable. We didn't announce it. We simply posted the link beneath Maya's original article with one line: full documentation available for public review. By morning, Borrowed Bride trended again. But this time, the narrative shifted. Headlines flipped from curiosity to consequence. Influencer faces civil inquiry after sister's evidence release. State auditors review social media sponsorship fraud. Sloan had built her brand on illusion. I'd buried her illusion under facts. Around noon, the phone rang. Not Mom, not Sloan. "Chief Daniels." "Ms. Morgan, just a heads up," he said. "City compliance received your submission. Turns out some of her sponsorship contracts violated the disclosure law. State's picking it up. Meaning? Meaning she'll be answering questions under oath soon." Nicely done. I thanked him and hung up. My hands were steady, but my heart wasn't gloating. It was grieving in slow motion. Revenge gives you justice. It doesn't give you peace. By evening, Sloan's lawyer sent a second email, shorter this time. Our client withdraws her complaint. No further action will be pursued. One sentence. No apology, just surrender disguised as professionalism. I forwarded it to Maya. Her reply came back instantly. "So what do we call this chapter?" Closure, I typed. Filed and notarized. That weekend, I went for a walk along the river. Tourists snapped pictures of Forsyth's fountain. No one recognized me. Good. I didn't want fame, I wanted quiet. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Sloane. No cameras, no makeup, just shadows under her eyes. She stopped a few feet away. You destroyed me, she said. I turned. No, Sloane. I documented you. Her lips trembled. We're sisters. We were, I said. You burned the bridge. I just kept the map. She swallowed hard. What happens now? Whatever you make of what's left. She nodded once, small and broken, then walked away without another word. I didn't follow. For the first time, I didn't have to. That night, Maya sent me one final draft before publication, From Silence to Citation, How One Woman Turned Family Betrayal into Legal Reform. It ended not with scandal, but with legislation, the city adopting new guidelines to prevent vendor fraud in public events. My name was printed beneath it, not as a victim, but as a consultant. I read it twice, then closed my laptop. I'd built the cage and set the bird free. When Evan came home from his shift, he found me sitting by the window. It's over? He asked. Mostly, I said. Now it's paperwork. And after paperwork? Healing, I guess. He smiled. You sure you remember how? Not yet. But I'm ready to learn. The article went national the next morning, and reporters wanted quotes. Sloane's followers vanished. Mine multiplied. The irony? I'd never wanted an audience. But fate had handed me one. And what I said next would decide what kind of story this became. Vengeance. Or vindication. By the time the story hit national syndication, I had stopped counting. Emails, interview requests, podcast offers. Everyone wanted the nurse who'd exposed her influencer sister. They wanted sound bites about family betrayal and poetic justice, but not the silence that came after. Truth is, justice doesn't echo. It just lands and waits for you to process what it costs. The first week after the final article, my life felt like triage. Sorting, discarding, rebuilding. I deleted social media altogether. No farewell post, no explanation, just gone. Maya called that night. You sure? Yeah, I said. Let her keep the stage. I'll take peace. Peace doesn't trend, she teased. Good, I said. Maybe it'll last longer. Work became an sanctuary again. The ER smelled like disinfectant and adrenaline instead of nostalgia. Patients didn't know my story, and I didn't offer it. When someone screamed, when someone coded, I knew what to do. There was clarity in crisis that life never offered. One afternoon, between rounds, I found a letter in my locker. No name, just a return address. Savannah Correctional Legal Office. Inside, a single-page apology in handwriting I recognized too well. Ava, I didn't know how to stop until you made me. I won't ask for forgiveness, only for distance. I'm leaving town. I hope one day you can wear that gown the way it was meant to be worn. S.I. read it twice, then folded it carefully and placed it in my wallet behind my nursing license. Not because I wanted to keep her close, but because even a wound deserves a record. Mom called a week later. Her voice was thin, guilt-wrapped. She's gone, Ava. Said she needs a clean start. That's good, I said. You don't sound happy. Happiness wasn't the goal, Mom. Honesty was. She hesitated. Do you think you'll ever forgive her? I stared out the window at the live oaks bowing under their own weight. Maybe. But forgiveness isn't a gift I owe. It's a choice I'll make if it ever feels honest. Mom started to cry. This time I didn't rush to comfort her. That was new and necessary. Evan came over with takeout, setting a hand on my shoulder. You look calmer, he said. I'm not calm, I answered. I'm ready. Ready for what? The audit, he frowned. Audit? I nodded. Every lie leaves a paper trail. I'm about to show everyone hers. I wasn't after her ruin anymore. I wanted the truth to exist in a place she couldn't manipulate. A newspaper archive, a public record, a permanent ledger. Revenge wasn't about spectacle. It was about permanence. As Evan left, he said, "You sure you're not just trying to hurt her back?" I thought about it. If I were, I'd have pressed charges. This isn't revenge anymore. It's proof with consequences. Still, deep down, I knew it was both. The next morning, Maya texted one line. Printing Monday. Headline, Borrowed Bride, the sister who stole a wedding. I stared at the screen until my pulse matched the typing dots. The story was going live. Sloane's empire was about to crumble, but truth has recoil, and I hadn't yet considered how far the fragments would fly back at me. The Monday, the article dropped, and the world split into two. People who believed the truth, and people who believed Sloane's version of it. At 8:04 a.m., the Savannah Ledger went live with Maya's story. Borrowed Bride, the sister who stole a wedding. Exclusive. Forged signatures, venue fraud, and a viral ceremony under pretenses. The article was clinical. Not cruel. Dates, screenshots, witness statements, procurement logs, even a quote from Judge Stokes confirming her injunction. Every claim is backed by a document. It wasn't gossip. It was evidence. And yet, the internet doesn't process truth. It digests emotion. Within an hour, Borrowed Bride trended on Twitter. Sloane's response came fast. A 6-minute Instagram reel. Soft piano. Puffy eyes. Strategic lighting. I made mistakes, she said, but I never meant to hurt anyone. My sister has always been overprotective. Maybe I leaned on her too much. Maybe she resented that. Classic inversion. Victimhood with contour. Mom commented a single heart emoji. That one small symbol hurt worse than anything Sloane said. By afternoon, news trucks parked near Forsyth Park. Photographers hovered outside Magnolia and Lace. Trying to interview June, I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. Then, a message pinged from Evan. Don't check the comments. Just meet me at the station after work. I didn't listen. I checked. Half were supportive. Finally, someone calling out influencer fraud. Nurses don't lie. Receipts are receipts. The other half were poison wrapped in empathy. Both sisters seem unstable. She could have kept it private. Family drama doesn't belong in the news. It's strange how justice can look messy from the outside. That evening, I went to Evan's station. He handed me coffee and didn't say anything until I finished half of it. Then, "You did the right thing." I stared into the cup. "Then why does it feel like I set fire to my own name?" "Because you still think peace and silence are the same thing," he said. "They're not. You can't build a boundary and expect applause." He was right. The first real win came quietly. June called the next morning. "Ava, you should come by." When I arrived, she handed me a sealed box. Inside my gown, cleaned and restored. "Someone dropped it off early this morning," she said. "Who?" "Didn't say. Left a note." The note was handwritten in Sloane's looping cursive, "You win. I can't walk anywhere without people staring. I hope you're happy." I folded the note carefully and slid it into my file. Not as proof, just memory. Because this wasn't happiness. It was balance restored. By midweek, Sloane's brand sponsorships began quietly disappearing. One cosmetics company issued a PR statement. "We stand for integrity and transparency. We are no longer affiliated with Ms. Morgan." Then another. And another. Her follower count plummeted by thousands per hour. Maya texted, "You want me to do a follow-up?" "Public statement?" "No," I replied. "Let the silence do its job." But karma's math isn't always clean. 2 days later, Mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. She looked smaller, like guilt had compressed her spine. "She's staying with me," she said. "She's not eating." "She's not used to hunger," I answered. "Ava, please? Enough's enough." "It will be, when she stops pretending it was an accident." Mom's eyes welled. "You've changed." "I had to," I said. "You raised me to forgive." I finally learned when not to. She left without hugging me. The silence she left behind wasn't relief. It was absence. That weekend, Maya's story was picked up by the Atlanta Journal. Bigger audience. National eyes. The comments turned from curiosity to a cautionary tale. Influencer culture meets real-world consequence. A masterclass in quiet revenge. I didn't feel victorious. I felt exposed, like everyone could see the scar and the scalpel at once. But the city saw something else. Chief Daniels from Forsyth called. Ms. Morgan, we're updating our event policies thanks to your case. Would you consider consulting on ethical contracts? It was ironic. The woman whose family stole her wedding was now helping the city prevent theft. I said yes, because that's what healing looks like, not closure, but redirection. Sloane stood near the fountain, radiant and ruthless. The dress hugged her like it had learned her shape. She looked exactly how I'd imagined myself, until I saw her eyes. Empty, wide, hungry. She spotted me across the crowd and froze for half a heartbeat. Then she smiled, that influencer smile polished for sponsorships. "Ava," she called. "You made it." Her guests turned, confused. A ripple of whispers. That's her sister, the nurse one, the one whose date this was supposed to be. I walked toward her slowly, every step measured. "Of course I did," I said. "Wouldn't miss the family tradition." Sloane's face tightened just slightly at the edges. "You look official." "Work uniform," I said. "It's the only thing you haven't borrowed yet." The officiant, a man I didn't recognize, cleared his throat. "Ladies, we're about to start. If you could—" But Judge Stokes stepped forward, voice smooth and sharp. "Not quite yet." She handed him a document, embossed with the city seal. "This venue reservation and all associated permits belong to Ms. Ava Morgan. Any unauthorized ceremony is a violation of Municipal Ordinance 14223. The officiant blinked. "You're a retired magistrate," she said. "Still licensed for injunction." A murmur spread like static. Guests pulled out their phones. Sloane's smile flickered. "This is a misunderstanding," she said. "My sister. She gave me permission." Judge Stokes turned to me. "Did you?" I met Sloane's gaze. "No." The single syllable landed like a verdict. Mom appeared from the crowd then, clutching a handbag like it was a shield. "Ava, please, don't do this here." "This is where it happened, Mom," I said quietly. "Right here, in public, just like she wanted." Sloane stepped closer, whispering, "You could have shared. You always have to make it ugly." I leaned in so only she could hear. "No, Sloane. You made it ugly when you sold our grandmother's pearls for a photo shoot." Her eyes widened. "How? You forget I still get the jeweler's receipts." Her hand twitched, and for the first time, she looked scared. Not of me, but of exposure. The conservancy manager arrived, clipboard shaking. "Judge Stokes, what do we do?" She gestured at the crowd. "Disperse. Any continuation will be considered trespassing under contract fraud." Gasps. Phones lifted higher. Sloane's fiancé, Connor, looked between us, pale. "Sloane, what is she talking about?" "Don't listen to her," she hissed. But his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and froze. On screen, local news alert. Unauthorized wedding at Forsyth Park under investigation. He turned to her. "You told me this was yours." "It is," she snapped. He stepped back. "No, it's hers." And just like that, the first fracture appeared. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt tired, bone-deep tired, like after a double shift where the patient doesn't make it and you still have to chart. Sloane's mascara streaked as the judge spoke again. "Ms. Morgan," she looked at me, "would you like to press charges?" I hesitated. My mother's eyes pleaded. The guests whispered. Sloane stood trembling in my gown, the train pooling like a white flag. "No," I said finally. "Not today." "Are you certain?" I nodded. "Let her keep the embarrassment. It's worth more than a record." Judge Stokes handed her the injunction papers anyway. Consider this an official warning. Another infraction, and it won't be optional. Sloane looked at me, voice breaking. You humiliated me. I shook my head. You humiliated yourself. I just turned on the lights. Then I walked away, the chatter behind me fading into nothing. By the time I reached the car, I was shaking. Rebecca put a hand on my arm. You did it, baby. It's done. I nodded, but the tears came anyway. I wanted justice, not this emptiness. That's because you're human, she said softly. Justice doesn't heal. It just clears the wound so you can start. That night I sat on my floor surrounded by silence. My phone buzzed nonstop. DMs, screenshots, support, gossip. But I didn't answer. I deleted every photo of Sloane from my feeds. Every shared password. Every trace of her is inside my life. For the first time, my world was mine alone. And yet, it felt like standing in a burned house. Safe, but haunted. Then Evan texted, You handled it. I'm proud of you. Rest. Tomorrow we rebuild. I looked at that word, rebuild, and something inside me clicked back into rhythm. Sloane's ceremony was over, but so was my patience. Tomorrow I wouldn't just rebuild. I'd make sure the truth lived somewhere she could never delete it. Revenge doesn't start with fury, it starts with paperwork. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by coffee rings, contracts, and the faint smell of wilted hydrangeas. The dress was still missing, the pearls gone, and my name dragged through family group chats as too dramatic. Fine. Let them think I was unraveling. The best revenge plans are built under the cover of underestimation. Aunt Rebecca arrived with a folder thick enough to count as armor. We're not burning bridges, Ava, she said, sliding it across the table. We're paving new exits. Inside, printouts from the judge's injunction, venue correspondence, time-stamped screenshots from Sloane's social media, and the florist's invoice marked paid by Ava Morgan. Proof stacked higher than pain. Still, proof wasn't enough. Sloane lived online, in the world of perception. Paper wouldn't kill her reputation. Pattern would. Step 1. Documentation. I cataloged everything. The boutique logs, the fake DMs, even Mom's texts where she begged me to let Sloane have her moment. Each became an exhibit. I created a folder on my laptop titled Inheritance, not because it was legal, but because this was the legacy she'd left me. Deception and data. Step 2. Information flow. I called Maya, a local lifestyle journalist, who'd covered the Forsyth incident as social media wedding chaos. She owed me a favor from an ER story I'd helped verify last year. Maya, I said, off the record, how much traffic did that article get? 50,000 views in 2 days, she replied. What if I told you it wasn't just an unauthorized event, but a case of forged documents and stolen identity? Then I'd say you have a follow-up. She didn't ask for gossip. She asked for receipts. I had them. Step 3. Reputation reversal. Sloane's brand thrived on illusion. Perfect sister, creative visionary, survivor of toxic family drama. So I started small, surgical. I commented under her newest posts with neutral facts. Lovely gown. Surprising choice given the original designer was still waiting for credit. Interesting venue? Did the actual contract owner ever show up? Then I logged out. Because the internet doesn't need your voice to amplify truth. It needs curiosity. By the next day, her followers were asking questions faster than she could delete. Mom called, her tone brittle. Ava, this has gone far enough. No, Mom, I said quietly. This has gone accurately. You're destroying your sister. No, I'm documenting her self-destruction. She started to cry. Real tears, the kind that used to dissolve my resolve. But this time, I didn't fold. I'd spent my whole life patching holes other people made. I wasn't going to mend this one. I needed one more move, something undeniable. That's when I remembered Connor, her so-called fiancé, the man who looked like he'd swallowed a truth he couldn't digest at the park. I found his business, real estate photography, and scheduled a consultation. He opened the door to his studio, looking like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. "Ava," he said, startled. "I didn't think—" "I'm not here to fight," I said. "I'm here to verify." He hesitated, then nodded slowly. "You were right. About everything." He told me how Sloane had lied about the reservation, the gown, even her engagement. She'd promised investors a content partnership built around her bridal influencer relaunch. He'd believed her until the judge showed up. "She made me sign NDAs," he said. "She said you'd ruin it all if I talked." "She's not wrong," I said, smiling faintly. "But she started it." I asked if he'd give a statement, on record, verifiable, not emotional. He agreed, maybe out of guilt, maybe out of relief. Either way, it was fuel. Back home, I compiled his testimony into a report for Maya. Dates, screenshots, bank statements. She read everything twice, then exhaled through her teeth. "This isn't a scandal," she said. "It's a case study." "What do you mean?" "A real-world example of how digital reputation covers real-world fraud. If I print this, it's going statewide." "Do it," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "You sure? Once it's out there, you can't control the narrative." "I don't need to," I replied. "I just need the truth to breathe." That night, I sat in my apartment surrounded by folders, receipts, and silence. Outside, the river whispered against the docks like something washing clean. For the first time, I didn't feel rage. I felt purpose. Then my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. "Sloane. You're not going to win this. I'll spin it like I always do." "Me. Spin it all you want. Just remember, the judge already signed my paperwork." No reply. But a minute later, her profile went private. Then came the engagement party. It was supposed to be intimate. 30 people, backyard lights, peach cake, my mother's idea of sweet and simple. Sloane arrived with a videographer. She said it was for memories. By the next morning, she'd uploaded a highlight reel titled "Sister Goals Celebrating Love," except that half the footage was close-ups of her. The comments weren't cruel, but they stung. "Which sister's wedding is it?" "Exactly." Evan noticed me staring at the screen, jaw tight. "You want me to call her?" he asked. "No," I said. "Let her keep filming. Cameras see everything." It was the first time he looked at me like I was planning something. By autumn, I could predict her patterns. Whenever something went wrong in her life, she'd orbit mine, drain my light, then leave before I noticed the dimming. But she slipped once, just enough for me to see the future. She came to my apartment one evening to help pick jewelry. When I went to the kitchen, I heard her phone buzzing with a name I didn't recognize, Connor. She answered softly. "No, she still thinks it's June." "Yes, the park's gorgeous. We'll make it happen." My pulse slowed. I stepped back into the room, pretending not to hear. She smiled, too bright. "Who wants takeout?" I smiled back, matching her energy. "Sure, Chinese or Italian." Inside, I was already mapping her endgame. That night, I opened my laptop and searched public marriage license filings. No, Sloane Morgan, not yet. But she'd do it soon. She'd wait until I was locked into work shifts, until the timeline was just plausible enough to fake. Sloane didn't want my fiancé. She wanted my spotlight. My symmetry. The life that looked neat on Instagram but took years of discipline to build. The saddest part? She didn't need to destroy me to have it. She just couldn't imagine existing beside me without comparison. By December, I stopped calling her. Stopped texting. Stopped correcting people who mixed up our stories. Because silence once again became my ally. But silence didn't stop her. It fueled her. And the night before my fitting, when her final favor arrived, a DM asking for my seamstress's contact, something inside me whispered, "She's not done borrowing. She's starting to take." The morning of my final fitting, Savannah's sky looked bridal itself. Gray silk stretched tight over the river. I remember thinking that even the weather seemed to hold its breath. I'd worked the night shift, slept 2 hours, and driven to Magnolia and Lassie, humming that low, anxious tune only nurses and brides know. Keep it together. Don't faint in front of people. By 8:45 a.m., I was parked outside the boutique with coffee in hand, watching the first beads of rain trace down the windshield. Inside, the mannequins shimmered like promises. June, the owner, waved through the window. Her expression didn't match her hands. Too still, too careful. I walked in smiling anyway. "Morning! Ready to meet the dress?" June's eyes darted to the back room. "Ava," she said, "I need to tell you something before you panic." Every cell in my body tightened. She explained how my sister had arrived early, too early, claiming I'd sent her. Showed proof, forged messages, and even my signature. June's voice broke halfway through. She said you were in surgery and needed her to grab it for a last-minute adjustment. I felt the ground slip, like when a trauma code turns fatal and you can't resuscitate time. "June," I whispered. What was she wearing? June hesitated. A white jumpsuit. And confidence. The boutique smelled like roses and static. I opened my phone. No calls, no texts. But notifications, plenty. My sister's Instagram stories were playing like live theater. 6 a.m. Video 1. Her in my gown, twirling in front of her full-length mirror. Caption: "Say yes to the dress, y'all." 9:24 a.m. Video 2. Close-up of my grandmother's pearl comb, pinned in her hair. Caption: "Legacy Matters." 10:01 a.m. Video 3. Her fiancé, or rather her latest boyfriend Connor, panning across Forsyth Park's empty lawn. Caption: "Tomorrow, noon, non-surprise ceremony, it wasn't a leak." It was a launch. I remember the weight leaving my arms before the tears did. June reached for me, but I waved her off. Don't. Because if someone touches you when your world is collapsing, your body remembers that softness instead of the strategy you'll need. I walked out of the boutique without my dress. Without my calm, but with something sharper. Certainty. By the time I got home, my mother was waiting in the hallway like she'd been rehearsing. "Sweetheart, before you get upset." I brushed past her. "Too late. She's going through something. You know how impulsive she gets." "Impulsive," I said. "This is grand larceny wrapped in tulle." Mom sighed, exasperated. "You always dramatize. It's just a dress." There it was. The phrase that would live in my skull forever. Just a dress. "No, Mom. It was the symbol of every time I went last so she could go first." "She said you were postponing," Mom added. So I told her, "You what?" She needed support. "You've got stability, Ava. She doesn't. Let her have this one good memory." I stared at her, and the years rewound. Birthdays, graduations, every moment she'd smiled when Sloane took center stage. That's when I realized my mother wasn't enabling her. She was protecting her. From accountability, from ever growing up, I turned away because rage that deep burns oxygen. "Get out! Ava! Out!" The door closed. The sound was final. At 4:32 p.m., I got a message from Jade, Sloane's best friend. Can you believe it? She's doing it tomorrow. Real vows, real dress. "You coming?" I typed. I wouldn't miss it for the world. That was the moment the balance shifted. Because revenge, when born clean, doesn't shout. It breathes. By evening, the story was everywhere. Local influencer plans pop-up wedding in Forsyth Park. Her followers loved it. Spontaneous, romantic, so Sloane. Comments flooded in about her timeless gown. My gown. Evan finally finished his shift and came over, smelling like antiseptic and adrenaline. I showed him the videos without a word. He watched, jaw tight, and finally said, "We're not calling the cops." I blinked. "What?" "She wants chaos. We give her silence. Then proof." He was calm, surgical even. The same voice he used when someone was bleeding out on a stretcher. "Do you trust me?" he asked. I nodded. "Always?" Good, then don't post. Don't call. We'll handle it legally. Legally. The word settled in my ribs like a heartbeat. That night, I went to Aunt Rebecca's. She listened to everything, not interrupting once. When I finished, she said, "I know a retired judge. Owes me a favor." "For what?" I asked. "Stopping a wedding that shouldn't happen," she said. We drafted a plan between mugs of mint tea. I emailed the Forsyth Conservancy, attached receipts, contracts, and of payment receipt. Requested confirmation of ownership of date and venue rights. Within hours, they replied, "We cannot permit unauthorized events under another party's reservation. If attempted, security will intervene." Security was good. But jurisdiction was better. A judge's presence meant any attempt to claim the venue would become a legal incident. At 11:58 p.m., Sloan posted one more story. She stood in front of her mirror, my dress shimmering like stolen light. "Tomorrow's the day," she said. "Can't believe how everything fell into place." I watched her face, the nerves hiding under the glow, the excitement of thinking she'd won. People mistake the quiet before justice for surrender. I shut my phone off and laid out my plan beside my badge and car keys. Contracts, affidavits, copies of texts, and venue correspondence. I even printed her story screenshots, time-stamped, notarized by Rebecca. Then I called Evan. "Tomorrow," I said, "I need you at Forsyth by noon." He asked, "In uniform?" I smiled into the dark. "Absolutely." Tomorrow, Sloan would walk down my aisle wearing my dress and meet the only two things she'd never planned for: the truth, and a judge with my last name on the paperwork. Morning came soft and gold, the kind of Savannah morning where sunlight seeps through the moss like confession. I didn't sleep. My heart had spent the night thudding out battle rhythms against the clock. Every tick said the same thing. She's really doing this. By 9, I was dressed. Not in white, but in navy scrubs. It wasn't symbolism. It was armor. I wasn't going to war in lace. I was going in uniform, the same one I wore to save lives, not destroy them. Aunt Rebecca pulled up outside in her pearl gray sedan. A retired magistrate in tow, Judge Evelyn Stokes, a woman who carried silence like a gavel. She looked me over. "You ready?" she asked. "No," I said, tying my hair back. "But I'm steady." "Good enough," she replied. We drove toward Forsyth Park, past tourists with cameras and joggers who didn't know the world could fracture over tulle. My stomach twisted as we neared the Conservancy gates. White chairs dotted the lawn. A string quartet tuned its instruments. My florist's arrangements, hydrangeas and pale roses, arched over the same trellis I had designed. The sight hit me so hard my throat closed. That was my wedding, unfolding without me. "Baby, I've been waiting," she said. "What do you need?" "A witness," I said. "And a notary," she chuckled. "I'll bring both." By evening, Sloan went live. Veil clipped, bouquet in hand, a cascade of ivory against the golden apartment light. Comments rolled like a tide. Obsessed. "Queen energy. Tomorrow is your day." She leaned into the camera. "Savannah, bring your picnic blankets. It's a public park." Then, like a dagger dipped in sugar, "Family welcome." I stared at her face and saw a girl who used to braid my hair on storm nights, counting thunder, whispering, "We're safe if we're together." I also saw a woman who learned I'd protect her even from herself, and mistook that protection for permission. At 9:47 p.m., an email from Forsyth landed. "We cannot permit an unscheduled ceremony under another party's contract. If attempted, security will intervene. If a legal authority presents contrary documentation, we will comply." Legal authority. The word steadied me. Not chaos, procedure. I texted Aunt Rebecca. "Bring pastor?" "And someone else, a judge if possible." She replied in under a minute. "I have a retired magistrate who owes me a favor. He'll stop by in the morning." I closed my eyes and finally breathed. At sunrise, Sloan planned to walk my aisle in my dress and dared the city to stop her. I wasn't coming with tears. I was coming with contracts, witnesses, and a judge. Before you understand what happened at Forsyth Park, you have to know what home looked like. We were a family of appearances. My mother loved presentation. The matching napkins, the seasonal table runners, the good silverware only for guests. My father worked nights for the county utilities. His love was the kind that showed up in paid bills, not hugs. And then there was Sloan, the younger one, the pretty one. When we were kids in Savannah's South Side, she'd trail behind me wearing my shoes, my perfume, my confidence, until she learned to imitate both better than I could. I was the reliable one, school nurse aide, track captain, church volunteer. She was the performer, talent shows, pageants, and photo shoots. Our parents' praise always sounded like balance sheets. Ava's dependable, Sloane's delightful. Even our birthdays, 2 years apart to the week, were joint celebrations. Mom would cut the cake into uneven halves. Guess which one got the bigger slice? I told myself I didn't mind. Being the grown-up was my currency. When Dad died, that unspoken contract deepened. Mom leaned on me for logistics, leaned on Sloan for company. I handled probate and funeral paperwork, while Sloan planned the flower arrangements and posted inspirational quotes. The world thanked her for holding the family together. After nursing school, I stayed in Savannah. Routine kept me sane. 12-hour shifts, instant coffee, the low hum of monitors instead of emotions. Sloan bounced between jobs, marketing assistant, boutique rep, lifestyle consultant. She called them pivots. Mom called them creative phases. I called them bailouts, because each one ended with a loan that started as just until next month. We never fought loudly. Our weapons were subtle: tone, omission, timing. When I got engaged to Evan, a quiet paramedic with hands that knew steadiness, Sloan smiled too brightly. "Finally," she said. "Now I can stop being your +1. The comment sounded harmless to everyone else. To me, it rang like foreshadowing. Evan and I met through chaos, an ER intake gone sideways, him wheeling a patient through triage while I stitched without looking up. 2 years later, he proposed in the hospital parking lot, lights flickering from an ambulance bay. Simple. Perfect. And Sloan filmed it without asking. Her post caption, "My sister's engaged. Guess who's next?" At first, I thought the gown incident was spontaneous, an impulsive stunt for clicks. But the more I looked backward, the clearer the trail became. Every favor, every time she asked about vendors or guest lists or your Pinterest board password, just curious, they were reconnaissance missions. She'd been collecting my wedding piece by piece like a mosaic she meant to claim. Mom insisted Sloan was just excited for me. But excitement doesn't come with NDAs and false DMs. It comes with champagne and hugs. The night, before the fitting, Sloan texted me a photo of us at ages 6 and 8, sitting on our grandmother's porch swing, wearing paper veils made from napkins. The caption, "Funny how things come full circle." I'd heart-reacted without thinking. Now that image replayed in my mind like a prophecy I'd ignored. There were small traditions between us. Friday coffee at Driftwood Cafe, birthday brunches, shared Netflix passwords, but beneath them was the steady erosion of boundaries. She'd always crossed lines softly, with laughter as cover, and I'd always cleaned up after, too tired to make conflict. That's what too responsible looks like, mistaking maintenance for peace. So when she walked out of magnolia and lace in my gown, it wasn't her first theft. It was just the first one dressed in white. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed Mom's words, "Don't ruin this for her," as if she'd already chosen sides. The walls of my apartment felt smaller with every notification pinging on my phone. Sloan's followers hyping her mystery ceremony, relatives speculating, coworkers tagging me like it was gossip, not grief. I wanted to scream. Instead, I opened my wedding planner and began crossing things out. Guest list, catering vows, until only 2 words remained in black ink. Legal proof. Somewhere between heartbreak and paperwork, my pulse slowed. I realized I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was preparing, because family betrayal isn't a storm. It's whether you start predicting By dawn, I'd stopped asking why Sloane did it. The better question was how far she planned to go, and whether she understood I could go further. There's a myth that betrayal happens all at once. One big, cinematic moment that splits a life clean down the middle. But that's not how it starts. It starts small, rehearsed, practiced in doses so tiny you almost feel guilty for noticing. For me, it began 6 months before the gown vanished. Sloane came over one evening, swirling a wine glass like she was in a commercial. She'd just lost another creative marketing contract. They didn't appreciate innovation, she said. Anyway, how's wedding planning? I told her about the deposit at Forsyth, the custom gown, and he guest list trimmed down to close family. She nodded like she cared, then casually asked, "You don't mind if I look through your planner, right? For ideas?" She didn't wait for an answer. She flipped pages, humming approval, snapping pictures with her phone, just to remember the setup. I should have drawn a line there. Instead, I poured more wine. 2 weeks later, she texted, "I met a photographer you'll love. Already told him about your color scheme." She attached 3 sample shots. My stomach dropped. Those were from my private Pinterest board. I hadn't shared it with anyone except Evan. How did you get those? I texted back. You emailed them to me, silly. No, I didn't. Then maybe your app glitched? Anyway, you're welcome. I let it slide. Again. Because I'd been trained to keep family from feeling attacked. That same week, I caught her copying my maid of honor speech draft. Yes, mine. She'd peeked into my notes app while I was driving her to brunch. I watched her reflection in the passenger window, typing something furiously. What are you doing? I asked. Nothing. Just tweeting. But when I checked her page later, she'd posted a heartfelt quote from my speech, word for word. The caption, "Family first. Always." If irony had fingerprints, they were hers. The first open cut came at Mom's birthday dinner. Evan and I arrived with flowers. Sloane arrived late, wearing a white sundress. Mom's eyes lit up. Girls, sit together. So pretty, like twins. Evan leaned over. She's testing you. I know, I whispered back. Halfway through dessert, Mom asked about wedding updates. I mentioned our officiant, a retired judge from the church, Rebecca's cousin. Sloane's spoon clinked against her glass. A judge? Wow, classy. Maybe I should borrow him when my time comes. The table laughed, except me. I just smiled because the nurse in me knew. Sometimes you let a wound bleed before you close it properly. The next red flag wasn't symbolic. It was financial. My credit card declined at a florist, something that never happened. I checked my account later. An unfamiliar charge, $2,000 to Southern Lux events. When I called, the receptionist chirped, "Oh yes." Sloane Morgan paid for her wedding consultation using the secondary cardholder's info. I froze. That's not possible. There's no secondary cardholder. She had your billing address and birth date, Ms. Morgan. Identity, theft, intent, all in one sentence. When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. She just smiled on the phone. Relax, Ava. I'll pay it back when my partnership deal closes. You committed fraud. Big word for family. Big word, small soul. That night, I printed every transaction and tucked them into a file labeled receipts. Not the financial kind, the truth kind.